I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Let's see. I keep looking at the clock. Yes, it is officially 6 o'clock where I am at. Thank you for everybody that has joined this evening. My name is Nikki Cowart. I'm the proud president of Cy-Fair AFT. For those that don't know Cy-Fair, we are the third largest district in the state of Texas, and we literally touch both HISD and Aldine. And that's a good segue to talk about the participants, the other two tonight, that I'm going to allow an opportunity for them to, introduce themselves. Full transparency, I'm a big fan. I've known Candis Houston and Coretta Mallet-Fontenot for a long time. But ladies, let's see. Let's start with Candis Houston. If you want to introduce yourself, and if you forget anything before we give the mic over to Coretta, I will jump in and add too.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on tonight for this town hall. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with my union sisters tonight. I am Candis Houston. I am the proud president of Aldine American Federation of Teachers, where we are the 9th largest district in Texas. And if you've ever flown into Bush Intercontinental Airport, that is our district. But that's not what I'm here tonight about. I am here to tell you that I am a candidate running in House District 142. I am a mother. I am a labor leader, as I just told you. And I have been an educator for 17 years. And people have been asking me, why are you running, Candis, now? I am running now because of what just happened at the last state legislature session. I noticed that I could not sit back idle any longer from the attacks on public education, from the attacks on women's reproductive rights. That is why I am running. I will let you know that I enjoyed being a public education teacher. So I understand the challenges being in the classroom. So therefore, it's important for us to have state reps who have been in the classroom, understand education, making decisions on education.
Amen. Awesome. Candis, you hit all the highlights. But before we go over to Coretta, I'd be remiss if I didn't say one thing at the beginning of all of this. We are proud hosting tonight 2 Texas AFT endorsed candidates. So yes, we have a candidate for House District 142 and also a candidate for State Board of Education District 4. Coretta, for both of you, just to let you know, throughout the evening, we're just having a conversation. Obviously, Candis kind of kicked us off with that of issues affecting public school today. And we're just going to discuss how each of you plans to help improve our community schools, support our school employees, obviously, but better the educational experiences of students throughout the state. So yes. Thank you, Candis. And then Coretta, if you don't mind just introducing yourself.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Coretta Mallet-Fontenot, and I'm a candidate for State Board of Education District 4. This is a very important seat. The State Board of Education determines the curriculum that is taught in our classrooms. And as Candis mentioned, there were some very harsh bills coming out of this last legislative session. And it's very important that we have teachers who are at the table who can make decisions to thwart those negative things that are coming out of our state reps. We need to make sure that as we prepare students for, college and career, but we're also preparing them for the realities of the world, that we're preparing them to deal with and to know and understand their full history. Yes, America does have a complicated history, but the way that we deal with that is by facing that head on. We don't deny it. We don't hide behind it. We have to face it head on and have some of those difficult conversations. I am a 23-year veteran educator here at Houston ISD. I have also held various classroom and leadership positions within the district. And currently I serve on one of the most powerful committees in HISD, which is the District Advisory Committee. I have been co-chair for the past 3 years. And this year I decided, to kind of set that aside so that I could focus more on this race.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I just want to thank both of you for your time and of your unbounding energy. You both are such servant leaders in your current roles. So again, it's just an honor for me to even be here with you all tonight in the role of moderator. This will be an hour or less. It's very informal. We didn't give you the questions prior to, but yeah, just to let our viewing audience know, obviously you've introduced yourself with your background, but more so like what your intent is respectfully with both of your campaigns. So I'm going to ask the first question. Well, this question is going to go to you both, but we'll just kick it off. And again, don't be nervous. I'm super excited for again, the viewing audience to get to know you all as well as I know you. Candis, first question to you, and you've already touched on this a smidge on why you decided to run for office now, but part two of that, how will you be intentional about uplifting public education and advocating for teachers and support staff in Austin?
I think, repeat your question again, Nikki.
Yes, it was kind of long. More so through the lens of being very intentional on advocating for teachers and support staff once you get to Austin, about uplifting public education and advocating for them.
I think what is so important to do as a state legislature is making sure that we are hearing from everyone. And as the state legislature, because I have heard from members, in my union and members from across the state, because Texas AFT does a great job in doing surveys and hearing the data from across Texas. One of the things I would definitely be doing is letting them know these are the concerns. As a single mother myself, at one point, I was working 3 jobs because the pay of a teacher wasn't being given what I needed in my house. So I was a teacher, a president of this union, and also I was serving as a waitress at Papa Do's because I needed all of that money to have a livable income in my house because I'm raising 2 daughters. So of course, at the state capitol, definitely fighting for increased funding, fighting for better health care, fighting for a better retirement, letting them know the stories of everyone. Because we have so many state legislatures making decisions on public ed who's never been in the classroom, besides going in there to take a photo op picture.
Your story resonates so much with a lot of my members. Personal point of privilege here. When we ask for volunteers to serve on our own union committees, or again for block walking and phone banking, so many of the teachers in Paris say, Nikki, I would love to be able to assist and advocate even more, but I do. I've got that second job, like you said, Candis, with 2 girls now in college. So again, abounding energy, and so grateful to be with you all tonight. But yes, you're not the only one that's been with a side hustle or waiting tables to make ends meet. Same question to you, Coretta. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that, but just again, you've already touched on a little bit why you decided to run for office now, but again, how you'll be intentional when you get to Austin.
So one of the things that our local president, Jackie Anderson, always says is that if you don't have a seat at the table, then rest assured you are definitely on the menu. And so one of the things that I will be very intentional about is collaborating with members of the Education Committee, as well as with the Houston delegation, because they would be in place to put laws, they would be writing the laws or rewriting some of them that we hope to get rid of in order to make teaching, a more, something that's more appropriate for kids, to make it a more welcoming, career. We know that teacher retention is a huge problem, not just here in Houston, but across the country. Texas we often lead in many ways, and we can definitely lead with having plans for teacher retention, as well as making sure that, like I stated before, that we're teaching the truth. We need to get rid of this STAR test. It has been holding many kids back. It is affecting our college and career readiness. things like that, I can collaborate with the members of the education committee and other state legislatures to either mitigate or hopefully get rid of altogether.
Oh, amen. Yeah. We talk to parents all the time throughout the community. And quite frankly, it's sad to hear them say, but they're begging their soon to be high school graduates not to go into education, only because, like Coretta just said, it's not considered, unfortunately, a noble profession anymore. But we can certainly change that. With that, I would like to specifically ask Coretta, what do you believe our next State Board of Education representative, what those challenges will be and how you'll address those challenges if you're elected?
So obviously, critical race theory has been in the news, much of late. And one of the ways that we deal with that is that we have got to address that through the curriculum. We've got to have those TEKs in place to ensure that our teachers are teaching the curriculum and teaching history as it happened, not as we want to imagine it or not as we hoped it would have happened. We don't need to embellish or take away. We just need to teach the truth. And the way that you do that is by having those working committees, by making sure that we have local teachers serving on those committees and teachers who particularly teach that content. Making sure also that as here in Houston, as we're trying to professionalize our teaching assistants by, promoting contracts for them, that we also take that fight to the state legislature and the State Board of Education, because that, again, is another way to maintain and attract high quality teachers, moving in that path and making sure that the people we have interacting with our students and supporting our teachers are there really, and they don't have to worry about, as you mentioned earlier, running off, to a second or a third job. I have a coworker who leaves and she comes in early so she can leave at around 3:30, which is before the day actually ends, so that she can go to a second job. We should not have to do that. We need to be paying people what they are worth. We are doing above and beyond what, we typically did when we all first started teaching, or even when we were in our college prep programs to become an educator. We create every other career that exists. There is no way other careers should be making way more than what we're making. Being an educator used to be something that was revered in community, especially in my community. That was something that we looked forward to, not because you could just have a good job and dress nice, but because, as Candis mentioned, you could actually thrive. You had an income where you were able to thrive. And we don't want just, get us up to a livable wage. No, we don't want to just live. We don't want to just be. We want to thrive. And we deserve that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Building off of what Coretta just said, Candis, your question, what kind of plan or ideas do you have to combat the classroom censorship attack on educators, referring to the false narrative that is being spun around CRT, critical race theory?
A simple answer. We need to teach history. No one should be censored. We have that right. And that's what we need to be doing. We are not going to erase what happened in this country. Period. Point blank. And our job as state legislatures make sure that our educators are teaching our kids the truth. No matter how ugly or nasty it is, we must teach the truth. We cannot take away what we want to take away. No, we need to be honest, because we must have those hard conversations so we can get to solutions. We need to teach the truth and let the teachers tell the truth.
Perfect response. I wanted to ask the same question to Coretta, if you have anything you want to add to that. But yes, Sister Candis, that was perfect.
It almost borders on having some sort of truth and reconciliation commission, like what we've seen in some of the apartheid states in South Africa. And keep in mind that often, those systems were built on what they saw happening here in America. So again, as I stated before, we can't hide from that. We have to embrace it. We have to have those difficult conversations, because communication brings about understanding. And the only way you're going to understand each other is if you're sitting down talking to one another in a calm fashion. We need to tell the truth because we set the example for our students. If we don't tell the truth, what are we teaching our children?
Coretta, building off of that, as an SBOE member, you would be responsible for curriculum and instruction. How would you approach this work as SBOE creates TEKS for social studies?
Again, that goes to the heart of having those teacher working committees. This past year, there was a solicitation for teachers to redo the TEKS for the Career and Technology Education Department. Most people don't even know about that. And so making that process more transparent, more accessible, and making sure that we have teachers who actually teach, world history, U.S. history, Texas history, making sure those are the type of people that you need to have on those committees. But also, you need to have student voice, because students themselves are going to be great advocates to say, hey, we need to know our history, especially students of color, because there have been so many contributions made by different groups that have helped to make America, the good things about America, what it is today. And we don't need to deny that or hide from that or shy away from that. Every group, every ethnic group has contributed to that history, and we should have those TEKS explicitly laid out. We should have a process that is streamlined for teachers and students to be a part of those working groups.
I completely agree. In this role, it's afforded me an opportunity to obviously not just attend Cy-Fair school board meetings, but I've been with Sister Candis and Aldine and HISD, and you can hear a pin drop when students come up to the mic, whether it's during citizen participation or public comment. You're right that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it just seems that everyone does say, "Oh, a student's here. We need to listen to what they have to say about this."
I want to say something
yes.
on what Coretta stated. When I was a teacher, I was on the curriculum writing for career and technical ed, because the classes that I taught, I was on the curriculum writing team for the TEKS at the state level and curriculum writing for my district. So that's why I tell people it's so important. Yes, it is extra time and you don't get paid for it, but you have a voice to make sure that it's a uniform information being disseminated and across the board. And I encourage people that if you have the extra time, join those curriculum writing teams at your local level and state level, because they need you. And you're right, Coretta, they don't advertise it a lot. I found out from someone else. So we must get on those. If you want change, it starts in getting on those curriculum writing teams.
That's right. And it truly lays down a foundation for generations to come, like you said, in all of our districts. Candis, you've already touched on this a little bit, but next question to you. Inflation combined with historical underfunding of educator salaries has cost educators and school employees real economic gains over the last decade specifically. If elected, what will you do to bring about real salary changes for educators and all school employees?
We need to tap into that rainy day fund. This is a rainy day. This pandemic, this is a perfect example of a rainy day. We are in a situation that our country has not seen in years. We need to tap into this rainy day. Why is it there for? Let's tap into that, number one. Number two, former educator, these salaries are horrible. In Texas right now, the starting teacher salary is about $32,000. Now, because we're in Houston and all the school districts are competing to recruit new teachers, but we literally have teachers in rural towns making $33,000 a year. We must get the base salary of teachers up. We must do that across the board. Our support staff needs to be paid more. Everybody across the board needs to be paid more. And perhaps we need to start creating a base salary for support staff. Definitely have to work on that, because we never hear about that. We hear about the base salary of teachers, but why do we not have a base salary for all of our support staff? We could not be in our positions without everyone. Support staff is so important. They don't make enough. I have a member right now who is an instructional aide and custodians making less than $25,000. That is unheard of. We cannot have that. We need to increase these salaries. Period.
Can I touch on that too, Nikki?
Yes, of course.
Say that I began my career in HISD as an instructional aide. And at that time, I was making less than $11,000 a year. I was taking home $343 and some change every 5th and 20th of the month. It wasn't even enough for me to move out of my parents' home and get a small apartment on my own. I could barely afford a car note, and insurance, to be quite honest with you. So definitely, I think that's a great idea, having a base salary for our support staff, because it would show them at least you have some sort of guaranteed a mechanism to know what it is you're going to be living on and what you can afford and where you can afford to live. In addition to that, Nikki, and I may be kind of jumping a little bit ahead here, I just want to say that we also have to look at how we fund schools. Years ago, we were sold a bill of goods about the lottery. Oh, if you bring the lottery to Texas, we're going to have all the money we need to fund public education. Well, we know that has not happened. That has been a woefully, misdirected, those funds. And now, they're wanting to expand gambling to online and, phone gambling and all of that. So who really benefits from that? Certainly it's not public education. In addition to that, I think we should also revisit how we fund schools. Oftentimes schools are funded according to attendance rates, not necessarily by enrollment. And so being a little more creative and thinking a little more out of the box can also go a long way with that. But we also have to be fair. We have to be fair, because as we sit here as public school educators, we know that charter schools, whether they're in district or private, receive more funding than traditional public schools, our neighborhood schools. And so you wonder why, when you go down the street to your neighborhood school, oh, well, they're lacking this or they're lacking that. And like I've had to explain to people that I've encountered along the way, on this road, is that when you receive, over $1,000+ extra per kid, with X amount of kids, you could fund a whole person's salary. That might be a speech therapist that could be used to, to work with more kids at a community school, at a traditional public school. Not completely hating on charter schools, but let's just be honest. They receive an unfair benefit and they don't always serve the populations that we serve. In public schools, we take everybody. We're just like the church. Whomsoever will, let him come, let him come. We take them, we embrace them, we feed them, we clothe them. And so now when it comes to being able to afford those extra services, we need that extra funding to do that. So I think funding that way has to be a lot more fair. And I was a little more creative and just think out of the box, with our funding in general.
Absolutely. I was actually rushing to host tonight from another meeting, and I don't know on everyone's screen if they can see it, but I wear this shirt many times a week. I love public schools, but I can't tell y'all at the HEB checkout how many times it has sparked a conversation for, some stranger, an older gentleman to look at me and say, you know what, I love public schools. And it's opened up a way to really talk about, like you said, just the disproportionate funding. Candis, I wrote down and put a star next to it, the base salary for support staff, and we could absolutely circle back to that. But the reason I stopped and made a note to myself, we would all agree that at the beginning of the pandemic, most educators, whether they were classroom aide or a bus driver, food service worker, classroom teacher, they were considered frontline workers and really hailed as heroes. And we keep saying that. But the fact that now we have these frontline heroes, frontline workers living below the poverty line, it's unattainable, the path that we're on. But another thing, knowing that I'm from Cy-Fair and you all hail from Aldine and HISD, back to something that was said earlier, I just have to add, we do fight for support staff as well. I had a whole host, I believe it was custodians that left to go to Katy, another neighboring school district, due to pay around the structure of their days. But again, with bus drivers, Sister Retha Thomas with HISD, we talk all the time about getting creative and thinking outside of the bubble. And this is a good segue. This is what I'm trying to get at. It not just about pay, but also about respect. And that's the next topic tonight. We could spend a lot of time on that, but I just want to say educators across the state of Texas feel a profound sense of disrespect. We do not feel valued, rather, by the powers that be. We don't feel included, as Coretta said, about not having a true seat at the table. So, question for Coretta: if elected, how would you ensure experienced, highly qualified educators and school employees will be respected and included in debates, decisions, and policies specifically adopted by the SBOE? All about respect. If you can't hear, I've got Aretha Franklin playing in the background.
I love it. I love it. So first of all, let me say this. For me, it's about your actions. You can say one thing, but I look at what you do. Your words and your deeds must align. So if you say you respect me, put some respect on my paycheck, because that is what is going to allow me to hold my head high when I go into the grocery store to buy groceries for my kids. Or it's going to allow me to walk into a department store and buy school clothes for my kids and grandkids. If you respect me, respect is just like love. It's an action word. Put it in deed and put it in practice, and not just, as a talking point here. Oh, we respect our teachers. Nikki, I just want to go back a little bit, because this really touched me. When you spoke about the beginning of the pandemic, we literally turned education on a dime. We literally did that. And we were everybody's hero and shero. The bus drivers were bringing food. They were bringing clothes. They were doing all of that. Wraparound specialists were dropping bags of food off, at your front door, knocking on the door and dropping food off. Guess what? That should continue. If the public, and by the public, I mean, legislators, all of it, they have to show that they respect educators, that they value what we do. You said it when you needed us to help with your children, to make sure your instruction continued. And we did that. We taught ourselves Zoom and everything else with little to no training. Even now, that still continues. It still continues. We still have, as a matter of fact, today, I had a teacher, reaching out to ask how to get glasses for a student, because his glasses had been broken and he didn't know what to do. And he couldn't see, literally could barely see in front of him. And so I just had to let her know, we have people who partner, with us, but that's because we have such dedicated wraparound specialists, dedicated nurses. And keep in mind, nurses are on that teacher pay scale as well. Mm-hmm. Our nurses have been phenomenal in making sure that we have the right procedures in place, and that we're doing the right things, that we're following the science and listening to the actual data. They have coordinated testing on campuses and all that. I go every Wednesday on my campus. I went today, and I get tested for COVID. And I do that because, like many of you, they want us in the school, but they forget we're human too. We have family members who have died from COVID. So it's very important that same respect you gave us at the beginning, you need to also extend that to us now, because we're in the classroom with 30 plus children, some of whom we constantly have to say, please, dear, put your mask on. Please keep your mask on correctly, because we don't want anyone to get sick. I have students who have lost family members. I've had to help them, cope and grieve, even as I am grieving myself. I have to still put that smile on and act like, oh, yeah, everything is all right. So you show me respect, put it on my paycheck. I don't care what you say, put it on my paycheck. Your deeds matter. Words are words, but actions and deeds and what you put into practice, that matters. And that shows everybody else in the community, in the state, that you actually value, teachers like you say you do. Put your money where your mouth is.
Coretta, you said it best when we started talking about respect and thinking creatively. Here in Cy-Fair, we've created within confines of my leadership what we have called a retention committee, because again, outside of pay, we are going to ask the stakeholders here in our district to get very creative. And I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. We have our next
benefits, Nikki. Don't forget benefits. Healthcare is a huge issue for teachers and our support staff, many of whom often cannot afford the better healthcare plans. So absolutely, don't forget the perks, the fringe benefits.
Nothing is off the table. They chose to meet with me as the local president on President's Day. They are giving up their holiday. So on Monday, the 21st, and someone shared Coretta HISD is the only one around these parts that still has a defined work day and what that may look like. Also, I believe Spring ISD has a great class coverage, even if it's, hey, not COVID related, but my colleague's been out on maternity leave and we're all chipping in and having to cover classes and getting paid to do so. So yes, even though we are all so intricately, both figuratively and literally touching each other, when it talks to in the same vein of respect, when we really start dissecting that and talking about that, we need to share best practices and again, get very creative and nothing's off the table. Someone brought up masks. Just, good segue here, talking about the pandemic and being.
I want to mention something on that respect. I see I'm gonna have to take some notes because I'm taking notes now, because one of the things that, and I agree with my sister Coretta, respect is an action. And if you respect us, number one, why do we not have paid leave when a woman has to go out to have a baby? Absolutely. Most companies have paid leave for their employees, for men and women, husbands and wives, when their wife go out to have a child. But in education, yeah, you can go have your baby, but you got to use your sick and local days if you want to get paid. We cannot have that. We need to have paid leave for our employees who is going out on maternity leave. That is only right and fair. Number two, respect. When I had a town hall with the members at Northeast AFT last week, one of the members stated this, and I agree with her 100%. If you respect our profession, why are we the only profession you see billboards advertising saying, come teach, as though it's that easy to do? Do you see any other profession that say, come join, be a doctor, come join, be a lawyer? No, you are watering down this profession by putting it on a bulletin board as though any and everybody can come teach. Respect us.
Everybody can't do what we do.
Everybody cannot do what we do. That is what respect. You are correct. It is an action. And that's where it starts. Let's get some paid leave going on. Stop making us use our own state and personal days that we've earned.
And I remember that, Candis, when I was a new mom, I had to save up X amount of days over course of a couple of years, because I knew I was going to have a baby. And not only the days, I had to save money, because I was out and I wasn't being paid. Like I had to save, I think I saved something like $10,000. Because of course you always get those unexpected medical bills that are not covered by insurance. So you have to pay for that. You have to pay for formula. You got to pay for a whole lot of things, when you're out without, paid leave. So I absolutely agree with you. I've experienced that. And look, and I second that motion.
Yes, ma'am. And one last thing, we need to create where we want to start, but I know instructional specialists, people, aides that would love to become a teacher, but can't afford to go back to school. Why can't we create a grant for support staff if they want to go back to school, it should be done free for them, with the intent of perhaps letting them stay at that school for 2 or 3 years. Like companies now, if employees want to get more experience and more knowledge, you got companies that are paying their employees to go back to school if you stay with this company maybe 2 or 3 more years. We need to do that in education, because I know that will entice many of our bus drivers, instructional aides, who may want to become a teacher but can't afford. Let's let them go back to school for free.
Ladies, it's going to take, electing former educators, current educators like yourself that have truly not just talk the talk, but walk the walk to know what you're talking about. I was just going to say, back from a mama point of view, I'm a proud mom to 4 boys, that by the grace of God, we're all born healthily. But I have friends that said, Nikki, God forbid if I have, some unexpected things come out before delivery day. That's a whole nother conversation. But like you said, we can't always plan for those kind of things, or through adoption. I mean, there's a whole myriad of things that we need to have change. But it's all in action, and it's all about respect. Candis, I would be remiss, because we kind of touched on this, but this question goes to you. If I didn't bring this up specifically, what do you think about the debate over mask mandates for educators and students on public school campuses? Well, second part of it, and as state legislator, how would you address overall COVID-19 safety in schools?
I think it's important to follow the science. And if I was to become a state legislature, I would definitely want to hear from teachers, want to hear from people, because we need to follow the science, and that's just where we are. Those people are the experts in their fields. So as a state rep, I need to listen to the science, and that's what we need to do. And unfortunately, we have some people that feel certain ways. So it's important as a state rep, you hear both sides, and then you follow the science, because what we know is COVID is real. Because I think at this point, all of us know someone that has died from the complications of it. And as science keep evolving, because it's new, they're still doing, research. So as new research is coming out, we must follow the science, and decisions need to be made based upon that.
I agree with that, Nikki. I would just like to point out and just reiterate again that, my husband and I, we've lost a child to COVID. I will be burying an uncle this Saturday who died from COVID. So yes, it is very, very real. It is absolutely imperative, that we follow the science. Things like that are what is helping to fuel, my energy level in this race, because I have seen directly the effects when we don't listen to science, when we don't listen to, common sense, health mitigation measures. We put people at risk. Plain and simply, we put people at risk. I don't want to wear a mask, all the time, but guess what? I do it because it's necessary. It is what has been scientifically proven to be safe from me, possibly infecting my students. How would someone feel if the teacher came home and brought COVID, came to school and brought COVID to their class? That would be awful. Awful. So, I think that when we talk about, following the science and masks, and even going back to that respect, make sure that you value our life, our health, our safety, and our well-being by keeping policies in place that are going to not only protect us, but also protect our students and the families and the communities from which they come from.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, currently, science says now the 3-ply mask helps stop the spread versus the cloth mask. So science still says right now wearing a mask will cut your chances. And that's what we have to follow, is what science is telling us. No matter how uncomfortable it may be for us, right, we have to follow the science. And that's where we stand. That's where I stand.
And I concur.
I know. Gosh, I've enjoyed speaking with you both so much, but now we're like way past the halfway mark. I know we said we're going to try to get everybody, wrapping up by 6:45 before 7 o'clock. So I just have like one or two more questions for you both. For Coretta, I'm going to drop some stats that you're, numbers that you're already very familiar with. And we've talked about being public school proud and loving our public schools. Charter schools. This is for Coretta. Charter schools in Texas account for $3.6 billion with a B, 3.6 billion in public education funding, but they're not accountable to locally elected school boards or the voters. This lack of accountability has led to serious abuses, with charter school operators paying for skybox tickets, private planes, advertising, again, all with our Texas taxpayer dollars. What will you do, Coretta? What will you do to oversee the charter school system currently in Texas, but protect the taxpayers from these abuses?
So one thing I think we have to realize is that the charter school law is just that. It is a law. So that would require me to work with legislators, particularly those who serve on the education committee, and hoping that Candis Houston will get there, to rewrite those laws, because it is very important. If our traditional school districts have to have, transparency in their financial dealings, and they're held to the same accountability standards, as far as grades and learning and curriculum, then charter schools should also be held to that same standard. You can't you can't have true change without putting that in law. So I would love to sit down and work with a House representative of District 142, Candis Houston, to rewrite that law. It's very, very, very important that people understand that the State Board of Education, in some instances, they're only implementing what the legislature has written. So in order to change that, we have to start with the legislature, and then, make those transitions, put in detail in terms of policy, put those policies in place more transparently on the SBOE side. And then also, of course, I would even say, working with those charter districts, because for many of them, that level of financial transparency is going to be very difficult when they've not been held to account prior to. So they're going to need support in making sure that all of their records and documents are properly allocated for.
Coretta, I so appreciate you saying that, because I've had conversations, within the community out here that I'm like, I'm not throwing any shade if you choose charter or, whatever for your private school. We need to even the playing field, like you said, and make it transparent and the same for all. So thank you for saying that and saying that they may need assistance in that, but we are talking big funds, lots and
Absolutely.
lots of money.
You want the dollars, but you don't want the accountability.
Correct.
Let's say that again. You want the dollars, but you don't want the accountability. And what a lot of people don't understand is that charter schools don't have to have certified teachers. They can create. So it's just a lot to it. And I'm with you, Nikki. I don't care if you go public, charter. However, I need everybody to understand that charter schools are not held to the same standards as public schools. And if you want the dollars, I need you to take everything that comes with it, because they get to pick what type of students they want. So they don't take the students with discipline. They don't service kids with special needs, 504. They just want, and we all know every child has a need, whether they are identified or not. I need you to take it all and not some. You need to be held accountable. If you want
right.
the dollars.
That's right. And it becomes a revolving door situation, can I share, not just with our students, but sometimes with our staff that are, falsely thinking like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. But I know every single one of us, even viewing tonight, know of someone that went and worked for a charter school district with not the same policies and procedures and protections in place for both teachers and support staff, and they thought, "Oh Lord, what have I done?" They've come running back to public school.
Can I testify to that?
Of course.
I had taken a self-imposed sabbatical when my oldest son was transitioning to middle school, and I didn't take off when he was a baby, but I told my husband I really want to take this time off and help make sure things go smoothly. And while I was enjoying my time being a stay-at-home mom, I had someone contact me and say, hey, this school really needs a teacher. They're looking for such and such teacher. And I thought, okay, it's in my community. I'm going to be able to do some good. I went in with this altruistic, thought process in my head. When I got there, there were no teacher protections. I think at that time, other than the principal, I was the only person who was certified. They did not want to pay me. They wanted me to work longer hours with more work, more discipline problems, but they weren't really addressing them. And that was of great concern to me, that I saw children who literally had mental health issues that you are not dealing with. As soon as they got the money, got the funding, hey, those kids were out the door. Needless to say, I did not stay there very long. I couldn't. And even now, I won't mention their name, but they are still in business. They have used kids, for labor and things of that nature, to do things around the campus. They help beautify the campus. They used to make them clean up the campus, just things like that we know are not, a good practice in an educational environment. So I can definitely attest firsthand that I have seen many charter schools, well, not many, but the one that I had a brief stint at, do things that were very, very unethical. They don't treat the teachers right. They don't respect you. They don't want to pay you. You don't have health insurance or benefits of any kind. And I'm thinking, hey, I don't need this. I'm coming here to do a friend a favor. And then when I shared with that friend what was actually happening, they were like, oh, I didn't know it was that bad, because when I come there, everything is so nice and neat and pristine and the kids are well behaved. I'm like, but you're not here every day, all day. So you don't really see what happens. And the lack of support for the children who are oftentimes, attending charter schools. A lot of times parents think, oh, I'm going to get this private school education. No, you're not, because you don't even realize that your child's teacher is not even certified to teach in the content area for which they're teaching.
That's right. It's a facade. And unfortunately, like you said, for our babies, for the most precious commodity, our children, sometimes it's so late once that is realized, and getting them back in a strong public school, becomes a treacherous feat for all. So, Coretta, thank you for sharing that very personal story. Candis, school districts, all of them, are having to put more and more work on educators, that they're asking for more each day. How can we make sure that an educator's work day, and mainly their work-life balance, is respected, while at the same time making sure they are fairly compensated for our work? But yeah, let's talk a little bit about work-life balance, because that is something that's being discussed in all meetings with all of my union members out here.
As a state rep, I would want to define a work day for educators. We need a defined work day. That's where we are. Because as a union president, I hear all the time, oh, that's underneath other assigned duties, And so before you know it, they're having meetings after meetings after meetings. And it's taking up time. All of you know we're having teachers 10 to 12-hour days, and even working on the weekends. They don't even have a good work balance, which is why this was already happening before the pandemic. People think this was already happening before the pandemic. The pandemic has exposed it and made it even worse. Therefore, we must get a defined work day, because school districts are hiding behind making people work more hours behind that contract that says other assigned duties. And that has to stop.
And that also affects our teacher retention, or lack thereof, President Cowart, as well. Today, I was speaking with the clerk who works in my academy, and she was asking about, something similar to this, about, clerks and aides having to keep classes because, we're shorthanded of teachers. And I told her, hey, we need to have a conversation, a different kind of conversation, so that you can learn your rights, first of all. And that begins with, as Candis said, with knowing that you have a defined workday and making sure that it's not just a guide, that it's actually embedded in law, in policy, and in practice. In addition to that, I want us to think a little more wider when we look at this view. Think about, I know for me, when we first went into the pandemic and we were on lockdown, I reached out to my union and said, hey, because I'm a person who I normally exercise outdoors. I ride my bicycle, I go walking. When I was really, really good, I used to roller skate for miles and miles, up and down Martin Luther King back in the day. But I needed that exercise. I needed to have my mind calm down. So I asked for that social and emotional support from my union. And I want things like that, I think, should be embedded into law as well. I have been talking with people, and they're talking about having Zen rooms where you can just go in and let your mind just kind of turn off, even if it's for 5 minutes. I have found myself, even in my classroom on my planning period, and I have a stack of papers to grade here, and I'm my computer here, and I'm putting grades in the grade book. I have to say, just 5 minutes, just close my eyes and just let my mind wind down and calm down just a bit. We are all on high alert from COVID, from just everything happening, because keep in mind, the world has not stopped because we're teaching in COVID. We have still had school shootings, all these other things going on. So all of that still plays a factor in our mental health and our well-being. And I think those things should also be embedded into law, not just the defined workday, but making sure also that if we ask someone to work more than what their assigned duties are, or longer than their defined workday, because now I'm taking you away from your job and I'm asking you to go do another job, we need to compensate teachers. When I taught middle school, and I volunteered to do tutorials, on my lunch period, on my planning time, the principal paid us. She was like, okay, sure, we'll pay you. But nowadays, when you ask to be paid for, for doing extra work, that's almost like a crime. And it's ridiculous, and then they wonder why you can't keep people. And the people you do have are like, no, I'm not teaching summer school. I'm not teaching credit recovery. I'm not doing this and I'm not doing it, because people are tired, mentally tired, they're physically tired. And then we also have other responsibilities. People are caring for children, they're caring for parents and other loved ones. So we have to respect that time. And if you want that extra work, you've got to be willing to pay for it, and it should be codified in law.
That's right. Yeah, one of the only silver linings to all of this, AFT started hosting the Wellness Wednesdays.
Yes.
There were some yoga sessions, and
I'm the world yoga pillow.
Yes, I'm the world's worst when it comes to shutting my mind off. So it actually was very foundational, and the beginning steps of truly how to do meditation. And so, yes, shout out to our national union leaders that really pushed us to get that out to our members and say, believe me, whether you think you need it or not, Wellness Wednesdays became a regular thing for us in Cy-Fair. Last question, I think, goes to Coretta. What makes you uniquely qualified to stand up for the voice of educators on the SBOE?
What makes me uniquely qualified is that I have served, and I use the term served because I do consider myself a servant leader, for 23 years in HISD. I have taught elementary school, middle school, as well as high school. I have helped to write curriculum. This is when we actually had content area curriculum departments. I used to do, that was my side hustle back in the day, doing curriculum work, So I've held leadership positions on the campus. I've been a literacy coach, an instructional coordinator, AYP coordinator, testing coordinator. I've been department chair. I've done just about everything in a school other than being the principal. So I have that curriculum knowledge that it takes to serve on that board. But when I was a literacy coach, we also had a budget tied to that position, where we were able to hire people and write the FAQ for that job description and all of that. So I bring that type of experience to this position.
I love it. So we've been saying throughout these events, hashtag respect us, hashtag elect us. When I get off this call, I don't know if you guys are aware, we have a Cy-Fair educator running for Congress. Because of where I live, early vote, we all know, started February 14th on lovey-dovey Valentine's Day. So I ran to the polls Monday morning, and I've already been able to vote, and obviously voted for one of my own. But yes, I can't thank you all enough as candidates for putting all the behind the scenes hours of work that it's gone into getting it thus far, but also our attendees tonight. I just want to remind everybody, check the chat. We had some staff and leaders putting out some important links to volunteer, specific links for our candidates campaign. Again, these two strong educators are longtime union members, very easily got the Texas AFT endorsement. I just can't emphasize enough how important volunteering. In fact, please join us, the Houston Federation of Teachers, this Thursday. Is that tomorrow? Looking at my calendar off screen. Yes, this Thursday.
Tomorrow.
Houston Federation of Teachers are doing a big phone bank for both Candis and Coretta, and also Alma Allen. Let's see, what else am I missing? Did either one of you have any closing remarks before I kind of conclude like the next couple of steps on how, because again, March 1st, y'all, it's going to be here so fast, so soon. But Candis, did you have any closing remarks about your campaign specifically, or the supports that you need? Because obviously we look so forward to working together and continuing to advocate for our schools, our students, and our school staff.
I do want to say just a few things. First of all, thank you, Texas AFT, for creating this platform for us to come and share our thoughts and how we want to support and advocate for education at the state level, which is so important, to have people who have worked in education to be able to speak on it. But some of the things that we stated, I want to let you know that I plan to do that across the board. That maternity leave, paid leave, that's not just for educators, that's for all companies should have that. Let me be clear on that piece. Not just educators, but other companies as well. We should have that in place. Also, in addition, one of the things that I want to circle back to, it is important that, as we all know, we have these reading academies. We cannot be giving teachers more work to do and other work to do and not have compensation for it. And fortunately for our district, I was able to get stipends for the teachers and people that have to complete those reading academies, which is horrible. Now, of course, if you want to volunteer and donate, you can go to my website, CandisHouston.com. I want to get one more mailer out so we can get it out to people, and mailers cost money. And if you can just donate $1 or $5, nothing is too small. Volunteer. We're going to need people at the polls. As we know, the weekend is where people really vote in early voting. So if you go to my website, you can email us at info@CandisHouston.com. And we're looking for people to work shifts 7 to 9, 9 to 11, 1 to 3, or 5 to 7. So please, I ask that if you support us, supporting is an action. Not only will we want you to vote for us, but we also want you to come and help us. Come meet us. I would love to meet you. You don't have to live in my district to help me block walk and to donate. Thank you, Nikki, my sister. It's been a pleasure. Coretta, a pleasure. You know you have my vote. And when I'm out here at these polls, I'm telling them, vote for Coretta. So I want to let you know we are a family. And as a family, we support family. And I have your back, and I know you have mine.
The same here. Nikki, I would just like to close out with saying, just as Candis did, first of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity, to talk to people, members and others who are here. In addition to that, in terms of supports for our campaign, this weekend, my campaign ran radio ads, and radio ads are not cheap. So we definitely could use some more donations with radio ads. You can go to Coretta for SBOE4.com to donate, or you can donate via PayPal or via Zelle. If you want to donate via Zelle, you can, the email that is attached to my campaign account is Coretta Mallet-Fontenot at gmail.com. And like Candis said, there are, I believe, 90 something polling locations across Harris County. We need volunteers. Even if you, listen, I'm just going to gently put it out there. If you would like to take maybe a half a day, if you have the time and you would like to spare that, find the polling location in your area. We want to make it easy. We want to make it, convenient for you to go to a polling location and, volunteer there. If you need literature, we can get that for you. Encourage your friends and family members. Speak at your churches and ask your church members to vote for us. Please remember Candis Houston and Coretta Mallet-Fontenot. We're here to serve you.
Yes, yes, yes. Y'all, to the viewing audience, please help us get out the vote. Like you said, talk to your colleagues on your campuses, at your work sites, talk to your neighbors. I can't tell you how many times I throw out a yard sign and maybe a neighbor around the block will stop me as I'm walking my puppy dog in the evening and say, hey, tell me about this person. Why do you have that yard sign? So just getting out the vote any way you can. I saw somebody in the chat. Let's see. I wanted to shout him out.
And don't forget, check out our social media as well. You can go there. You can grab information and share it with your friends on social media as well to help us, reach out to voters that way as well.
Yes, as Miguel said, I was checking out the chat. Si se puede. I said it. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I wanted to.
That was good, Nikki.
I can say si se puede. So again, thank you as we wrap up. A big thank you, ladies, not just as panelists, but as my friends, as my union family. You guys are doing this work every single day, inside and outside of the classroom. And I just immensely appreciate you carving out the time and being here tonight. Last parting thought, I just want to say and remind to those at home, this obviously concludes our program for the evening. We want to thank you for attending yet again a Texas AFT virtual town hall. But we strongly, strongly encourage you, check the chat for phone banking opportunities to volunteer, and please help get our endorsed candidates elected. Anybody that's not a union member, also, if you want to become a member and help support our work for our educators, visit texasaft.org/membership. That's it. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.